Here are your top headlines from the weekend, our Outkick 366 in 360. So, Chad, let's start with Jeff Bezos in the headlines today for two different reasons. First, the reports came out that he was going to sell the Washington Post in order to purchase the Washington Commanders, and then he has since denied those claims. The Post put out this morning that Bezos may sell the Washington Post to buy the Commanders, according to investors. And since then, within the last 30 minutes, he has said that that's not true, that the paper is not for sale, and that he's yet to put in a formal offer for the franchise. So far, here's what we know about the Commanders and what we can expect. Yes, they are absolutely for sale. It sounds like Josh Harris, who owns the Philadelphia 76ers and the Devils in the NHL, is the favorite to get the franchise. He's a DC native, and he's the one that's been tossed around with his ownership group that seems like they're the most interested. This is going to break records. We could see upwards of 6 to 7 billion, according to reports. And Bezos, while he has been mentioned along with Jay-Z, Bezos has not formally put in an offer for the club.
So $4.8 billion was the Broncos sell?
Yes.
Now, if this goes between 6 and 7, it could get there. It's definitely going to break records.
They need multiple bids to make that happen.
Hutton, you know how much I study the financial markets, right? That's a big, pastime.
I follow your lead on that.
NASDAQ, all those things. Dow Jones, big into all these things. I study every Financial Times, make sure that I'm really up on the finance world. I say all that sarcastically, but I say that to say I know who Jeff Bezos is. And when you are a celebrity billionaire, I've been thinking about this. I know other owners may not like it. I feel like it's a good thing for your sport. To have an owner that everyone knows. If Elon Musk suddenly owned an NFL team, I'd be more interested in that NFL team. Wouldn't be a fan of them or anything, but I'd be more interested. When a member of the Walton family buys the Broncos, I don't think that's a bad thing for the Denver Broncos. I don't think it's a bad thing for the league. Jerry Jones became a celebrity owner, and no one knew who he was when he bought the Cowboys back in 1989. But celebrity billionaire ownership for a team, I don't think is necessarily bad. I think back to when Mark Cuban talked about wanting to buy a Major League Baseball team. And in fact, I think started the process of putting a bid for the Chicago Cubs and did not get it. But my immediate thought was, whether this is good or bad for the Cubs, I don't know. Also, I don't care. I'm not a Cubs fan. But it's interesting. It raises the interest in that club. It raises the interest to me. I think the more people you have when Jay-Z owns the Brooklyn Nets, it would raise interest in that team because you know who Jay-Z is. I don't think this is a bad thing at all if Jeff Bezos were to be the one that bought the Commanders.
And maybe he's not putting in the formal offer until he knows he's going to be voted through the fraternity vetting process that goes into this. Harris has been mentioned even back whenever the Broncos were up for bid. Now, the bidding process was supposed to happen just before the end of 2022. All the bids were supposed to be in. And at that time, Front Office Sports reported that Bezos hadn't put in that offer yet. But the billions speak, right? So far, he's denying that he's selling the Washington Post in order to put in the massive amount that it would take to purchase this team from Dan Snyder.
I'm looking at this very surface level right now, again, as I joked, as someone who doesn't study the markets and the Financial Times and all that. I'm just saying, if I know the owner and that owner buys a team that is of no consequence to me, I don't feel like that's a bad thing for interest in your sport or bad thing for marketing. I don't know how good of an NFL owner Jeff Bezos would be. I don't know if Commanders fans want him to be the owner or not. I'm just saying, when that happens, when celebrity and billions of dollars lines up and they can own a pro sports team, that helps the interest in everything around that franchise, I would think.
Tons of interest this weekend in the divisional round. The Chiefs end up winning despite Patrick Mahomes with the high ankle sprain, which is confirmed. He says he's playing in the championship game against Cincinnati, but it will not be on a neutral field because Cincinnati beat Buffalo. Meanwhile, Mahomes made it through this game in the second half, came back out, wanted to play, and they win 27-20 as he wills his team to victory, hobbled on one leg. Fantastic performance overall by Kansas City. Jacksonville had a shot, could never scratch and claw to actually grab a lead whenever Mahomes was out. And that's because Henne came off the bench and led a 98-yard drive. That was really the nail in the coffin in the second quarter.
The value of having a veteran backup like
who
Chad
never plays,
who never has to play. But I remember him coming in a pinch last year, or the year before, in a game in the playoffs, and did what was necessary to not lose the game, and did pretty well. I remember he got a big third or fourth down, the conversion also that's iced the game for the Chiefs. That being said, they're not beating Cincinnati without an 80% Patrick Mahomes. I acknowledge that there's no way he's going to be 100% in this game. I also acknowledge he's probably going to give it a go and try to play.
That's what he says.
Regardless, right? So
he didn't want to come out of the game.
The Mahomes I watched, while you can say a heroic performance to gut it out and play that game, dude had one leg. I mean, he was in his drop, hopping on one leg essentially, where he could not plant and throw. That's not good news for the Chiefs.
I thought the most amazing part of it was he was out of the game for nearly a full hour before returning on the high ankle sprain. So they took him inside, and he was pissed off about it. And then halftime, and then by the time he actually came back out and told Melissa Stark that he was playing, it had been about an hour. And normally you just play off adrenaline, and then post-game you end up suffering the effects of what was going on with the ankle issue.
He's not able to walk today. Right? That's the thought. It's the day after, the 2 days after, 3 days after. That thing's going to swell up so bad and be so painful, you're not going to be moving at all. I'm with you. The fact that he left and came back, I mean, what kind of shot did they give him in the locker room to help with that? I'm sure it was part of it, but it was pretty incredible. I'm just watching him and thinking, is this really the best option right now? I don't know. We didn't have to see Chad Henne the rest of the game in that one, but he was, was he 50%? Was he 40%? I don't know. It wasn't good.
No, but it was enough to beat Jacksonville.
Yep.
Now they've got to face a rematch for the AFC title game in Arrowhead against the Cincinnati Bengals, who took care of business against the Buffalo Bills yesterday, 27-10. I've been shouting, Cincinnati's the best overall team. They can beat you in multiple ways. They have the better quarterback. They've got the better offensive line, the better defensive line in this game, the better game plan, and the better overall team than Buffalo, who had been flirting with disaster in recent weeks. And with the turnovers, with the inability to really establish a run game other than their quarterback. And yesterday, they ran into a buzzsaw with Cincinnati's defensive plan and the fact that they were playing from behind in a game that they never expected to be playing from behind with the elements.
It was so disappointing on the Bills side. I want to start there because we're going to spend a week previewing this AFC Championship and talking about Burrow and the Bengals. They were fantastic. Defensive plan was fantastic. The Bills' inability to stop the run is pathetic. Let's call it what it is. That was America's team going into that game, and they laid a huge egg. They played terribly the final 3 games of the season. That is a massive, massive, massive disappointment. A year ago for Bills fans, and I know quite a few of them, it was hope, it was optimism, it was, if not for that damn coin toss, we go into Arrowhead and beat Kansas City. What an amazing game between 2 great offenses. But that coin toss is the reason we didn't win and the Chiefs went on and won. And a year later, it is a thud of a franchise. And there's got to be some serious soul searching going on about
and they're
that
not a young
team's
team.
Inability to get to where they need to go.
They're
You're
not
right,
a young team.
They're not a young team.
They have contract
and losing
issues.
Von Miller was obviously huge for that team, but just epic disappointment given everything going on around the Buffalo Bills, given that this had the feeling of they need to go to a Super Bowl. We said in the preseason, it's Super Bowl or bust time.
Yeah, their season
for the Buffalo
started 2
Bills.
weeks ago.
And they went out there and they got embarrassed at home by Cincinnati.
Roger Saffold, their veteran offensive lineman, said that they were tired. During the week, they were exhausted. And he pointed to all the things they'd been through, but also just tired on the season. And he said he could sense it based on how they were trying to mix up practice regiments and how they were planning for certain things on days where they wouldn't normally have that session installed. And it showed. They were blitz from the start. And while they only sacked Josh Allen one time, the Bengals rattled him. He never felt comfortable. And on the opposite side, the Bengals are clicking on all cylinders. The best thing from the Bills' perspective yesterday was Damar Hamlin was in the building. And while he wasn't there a week ago, he was there today. And it's remarkable, considering where we were in Week 17, same teams. Setting wasn't the same. It was in Cincinnati. But to have him in attendance yesterday, Chad, was awesome. And that's the best thing going right now in the city of Buffalo today.
Yeah, very cool. I saw him posing on Instagram next to a mural of himself in Buffalo. That was a really cool shot, and given the heart sign with Damar Hamlin, really cool moment for him and Buffalo. And again, I keep coming back to, maybe I'm channeling my brother-in-law who's from Western New York and a Bills fan who hasn't spoken to anyone since that game ended. We hope he's okay. It's another reason to be terribly disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean, the tired thing, come on. Give me a break. Every team is tired, and if they win that game and they get to a Super Bowl, we are trumpeting the fact, and they're talking about, and everyone that covers that team is saying, that rallied the team. The snowstorm, Damar Hamlin really unified that locker room and propelled them into the Super Bowl. You can't then come back and flip it and say, well, we're tired from everything.
They said they were exhausted.
I don't buy that.
But last week the question was, will all of that, all the culmination of everything that's gone on this season catch up with them? I think it does play a factor, but they just ran into a better overall team, top to bottom. And since he's here to stay, they've got a roster where they can now pay their quarterback and still keep their talent in place. Buffalo has some hard decisions to make, roster-wise, to keep their championship window open for as long as possible with the contract that they have for their quarterback. Same goes for the Philadelphia Eagles, a lot like Cincinnati. And we have yet to see them, who they limped into the postseason with a couple of losses. Chad, Jalen Hurts, he's more than okay. He was off the injury report last week. They throttled the Giants 38-7 as the magic run from Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley comes to an abrupt halt, and they lose for the third time this season to Philly.
So I'll be the first to raise my hand and say, hey, I'm an idiot, because I sat here on Friday and said the big surprise of the weekend would be the Giants winning outright in Philadelphia. And Hutton, I knew that thing was over quickly when I watched these two teams on the field together.
14-0.
Philadelphia is remarkable, and they were great on this night. I need to leave the betting up to Dylan Taylor with Outkick, who gave us some winners over the weekend. I did not provide any winners on my own. I apologize to the Eagles. They've been great all year. We've been talking about them being great all year. They were terrific. And Hutton, you posed the question a week ago. Can you trust Daniel Jones to have a second performance the way he had one against Minnesota? The answer right now is no, but also two very different opponents. That Philadelphia Eagles roster is stacked. Top to bottom, offense, defense. The most impressive parts of their team are offensive line and defensive line. They flexed that in this game. And the Giants' Cinderella story was bound to eventually hit a brick wall. And that's what happened in Philly.
And don't let people tell you that there's no place for defense in this league anymore, because the top two defenses in the NFC belong to Philadelphia and San Francisco. And both quarterbacks that played well in the wild card round looked awful against these defenses. Dak Prescott yesterday, not a repeat performance from what we saw against Tampa. And they go home packed. What was that final play?
My gosh.
What was that?
It was hilarious, is what it was. That's how I described that play. Zeke Elliott snapping the ball as the center on the play was the best part of it. And then the linebacker able to get a running start and just knock him over on the snap.
But throwing to Turpin. Like, what are they doing?
So the only thing I'd have to
They're
go
looking
back.
for a lateral.
Again. So my thought, this is going to sound funny, and I'm not trying to play high school Harry here, but I did play a little flag football in college, and we had
little intramural.
We had a slant pitch play, and the slant pitch was, you throw a slant, and then you got someone leaking behind going the opposite way, and you got the option to pitch back to them, and they keep running. I thought another play we ran was I had a very athletic center named Wes Webb, who played high school football. Was an all-region center offensive lineman, but he could run. So he would snap the ball to me, and one of our favorite plays was in flag football, you can throw to the center. So we'd throw it to the center, and then he'd have the ability to pitch it back to me or a receiver in flag football. Hutton, I thought it was going to be something like that, if Zeke Elliott didn't get just steamrolled at the line, where the pass to Turpin was going to immediately come back to Elliott. But it's clear on the play, Elliott's trying to block. He's not going out for to get the flip, right? Not a pass.
Well, he gets steamrolled.
I'm saying he's facing, and then he's flipping it back to Zeke Elliott going down the field, was my first thought. But he snaps it and just gets run over. So even if that was the play, we'll never know.
Well, and he's eligible on the play. He's ineligible as a receiver, but you can lateral to him. And he gets steamrolled from the snap.
Yeah.
And there was no chance of that. I just don't know why Mike McCarthy postgame was just like, of course we had other things planned for this. It didn't go as we wanted from the snap, but we'll keep that under wraps on what this play was. No, you crumble this up and you burn it.
Yeah,
that's it. Dalton Schultz, get 2 feet in on the previous play, by the way,
bad.
So you don't have to end up doing this. But it was just a complete disaster. And this was not a great performance top to bottom by San Francisco. But they show you they can win in a variety of ways, and that defense is going to come to play every single game.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought Brock Purdy was pretty good. He wasn't great, and it wasn't a vintage 49ers performance because they just couldn't punch it in the end zone. They had some great long drives. They were just settling for field goals time and time again. That's not going to get it done against the Eagles. You could get the job done against the Cowboys doing that. I also just watched this and following up a great performance in the Cowboys' first road playoff win since 1992 or whenever it was.
Over 30 years.
Dak Prescott was just not good enough.
Not the guy.
He's not the guy. He's not the one that's going to win it. We're here in Nashville and questions about Ryan Tannehill. Can this guy ever win a Super Bowl? Most everyone would say no. He's been to a conference championship game, something Dak Prescott hasn't, and has had opportunities. He's not getting it done.
Losing Pollard to the broken ankle was massive for them. And then Prescott was just off. He wasn't hitting Gallup, who's wide open down the seam in the fourth quarter. Chances to take control of that game, and what was 9-9, the score in the third, and the Cowboys couldn't get it done. And now we sit and wait to see just how mad Jerry Jones is about things with their roster and with their head coach. We would presume that Mike McCarthy's safe after what happened in Tampa, but who knows? Because Jerry's not getting any younger, and he wants to win. And he's constructed a team where they're good enough to win, but they have not been clutch in those key moments.
And I love getting
San Fran has.
Getting the immediate feedback from Jerry Jones postgame where he is saying how disappointed he is, how gut-wrenching it is, but then immediately backing his guy, Dak Prescott. And said, give us a year to prepare. I'm taking Dak Prescott every time to go in and win. And I'm thinking to myself, why? What else do you need to see that this guy's not the guy? He lacks, quote unquote, it. He doesn't have it.
He's throwing picks every game.
I mean, Brock Purdy has it. Joe Burrow certainly has it. Dak Prescott does not have it. There should have been a third interception, too, at the end of the game.
Yes.
That was dropped late. There would have been a pick six.
No, when he got the ball back, you knew they were not going down to score.
No chance.